Brodie, thank you for welcoming me to your home.
Thanks for coming, thanks for being here, and thanks for being involved in the process.
So we're just going to go through a few questions today and talk a bit about SDA and new dawn housing.
Sweet, let's get into it.
Just a bit of a start. Can you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Brodie. I live with cerebral palsy, quadriplegia, and functional neurological disorder. So that basically means, pretty limited functional capacity. So full-time chair user, as you'll see in the fully accessible wheelchair apartment. So yeah, that's me. Obviously pretty active, playing rugby, swimming, gymming, doing all that, and then a bit of NDIS work and all that sort of stuff in between. So that's me.
And you've been amazing through this process with the consulting. I know you've been doing that as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I traditionally work in that sort of space. Done a few kitchens and stuff like that as a product consultant. So it wasn't too foreign to me to come in and provide some insight, although it was pretty complex given the size constraints that we had to work with. So I think we've done an amazing job.
So how is the process of, well actually before we go to that, what did you know about specialist disability accommodation?
Well, when I first sort of got into the industry, more so as like a wheelchair consultant, I didn't really know a great deal. I mean, it was pretty great until, it became sort of more of a, I guess, investor type arrangement through the NDIS and that sort of thing. That's when doors started to open, people sort of started to figure out whether they were eligible. And I guess like I was sort of at that age where I was sort of looking at moving out of home. So that's kind of when I sort of started to look into it and understand it and figure it out.
Did you find it hard to get SDA yourself?
Yeah, I did. So I actually had to go through the tribunal and get my case upgraded from 1 to 3 to 1 to 1. So yeah, had to appeal it purely based on a few functional constraints that I had. With transfers and temperature regulation, lighting, that sort of thing. So just some secondary factors within my disability that wouldn't necessarily normally be considered unless you're living in a 1 to 3 environment.
How long did it take you to get through the tribunal?
Oh, that's a good question. That's probably more of a question for our mate Dan, the coordinator. But I would say probably 12 weeks, sort of thing. Yeah, it was pretty complex because we were going for quite a few more things outside of the SDA. So yeah.
Well, it's good to know that the ART can be a success story and get into your SDA. So how did you find the process was through the build and the move and dealing with new dawn housing?
I mean, yeah, you guys have really been great. I'll pump your tyres up a bit, like you really have. Like it's not your traditional SDA where you've just got the build and you go and find the tenant. You find the tenant first and sort of integrate it into the build process, which I really like. Some considerations from the building from the day one for the longevity of obviously the build, but then also the participant relationship.
Did you find that when you were going through particular parts, like I know when we went through the bedroom, the ensuite, the laundry and the kitchen, we brought you along and really showed you certain elements. Can you tell us a bit about how you found to add what you required in certain elements?
Yeah, I guess like for me, I'm very borderline on the criteria for fully accessible and high physical. So there's some sort of high physical stuff that I sort of need. You mentioned the provision for a ceiling hoist. I don't necessarily need a ceiling hoist at the moment, but down the line, it's something I might need to consider. So I guess that just those conversations around, it's not really a tick box exercise. It can be personalised, and that was the approach that we really took. This does meet the criteria for fully accessible, but isn't too far away from being a high care facility. So.
Because I know when we were going through that kitchen, we ended up going for you were saying how the big thing was the cupboards that could come down and you could easily reach from your wheelchair, and the long and raising of the bench and the placement of the appliances. Do you find that those things, even though they might not be in the SDA design standards, did you find they made a huge difference?
Yeah. I think it's like just going that little extra mile. Like yes, you can stick to the code and do the basics, but ideally you want your properties to be filled, right? You want your tenants to be happy and functional and independent. And you know, I want SDA to be able to serve its purpose, you know, be living in it, have my supports, and then have my family and that come in and not have to play the role of a carer. And those little extra bits and pieces just mean that, you know, bits of independence, which is, you know, really what you want in a place that you live.
So that really rolls in really well to my next question, which is, you know, how's SDA like affected, you know, your quality of life before you moved into SDA to now, you know?
Yeah, I can probably speak for a lot of people when I say this. Like, when I was living in a traditional housing environment, my mum was basically my primary carer, and there wasn't a lot that I could do in a traditional home. You mentioned the pull-out pantries and the drop-down electric shelving. Like, that's all stuff that I couldn't do independently, you know, and that's the difference between having the autonomy to get up in the morning and make my own breakfast and not have to rely on, you know, waking someone up or roster someone in the morning supports or something like that. So yeah, it just gives me that flexibility, independence, and I guess sense of purpose in a sense, you know, I'm doing the bits and pieces that I can. So yeah, it's just those little things that make all the difference.
That's great to know, and I think it's important that the NDIS knows that, you know, if you look at, you said your amount of care that you've gone from having someone that, like your mum that had to look after you, to moving into SDA, where having a design that's been purpose built for you, it's also reduced the amount of care that you require from others. You know, you can at times do things yourself because of the design of the home.
Yeah, and I guess that's, like, if we really go back to what SDA was created for, that is that, you know, you swap out the need for 24/7 care, and then you can have, you know, the things that we have, you know, the automatic door, things like that isn't something that I used to be able to do myself, whereas now I can come in and out of my own home, I can, you know, go to the kitchen and get the things that I need to get, and then if I do need help, I just hit the call bell and it'll do an out call, and that's, you know, the best part of it. I don't have someone in my face 24/7.
No, I think that's a really big positive of SDA. Um, so you were talking about pumping up the tyres. So what do you think makes New Dawn Housing stand out from other SDA providers?
Yeah, I think we've sort of covered it in early parts of the video, but the participant and provider integration, you know, you really push the want and desire to have long-term leaseholds and have the participant on a long-term basis. And I can tell you, by the way that we've designed this place, I'd be, you know, pretty stupid to pack my bags and move anywhere else. So I think, yeah, just the relationship that you build from day one. Obviously, you know, traditional SDA housing is build the house, go and get the tenant. Whereas, you know, you've got sort of that list of waiting tenants that you can then involve in the build process, which is, yeah, great in situations like mine, where a traditional sort of code for building high physical and such isn't always a good option.
Thanks, Brodie. So what do you think some misconceptions about SDA that other, you know, potential clients in the NDIS have that you think are probably wrong?
Yeah, I think there's a few. Obviously, the clinical nature of it within traditional disability housing is definitely one that comes up in conversation a lot. Like, you know, is it going to be a rehabilitation environment? Is it going to be sort of your nursing home environment? But no, SDA housing is a subdivision of housing. So it's purpose built for people that are that age group that still need their care provisions to come in, but have enough independence to be able to participate in a living environment.
No, I think that's a big one that we do hear a lot, and I agree that there are people that have that misconception that it's going to be institutional, and that's one thing that we've really tried to stay clear of at New Dawn Housing. And you can see that even in this build that you have 11 units in this building, and only one of them are for SDA, and that's yours. So you're, you know, a part of the general public, and
Yeah,
no
sure.
one would know unless they knew that this is SDA. Is there any other misconceptions that?
I think eligibility is a big one. Like if it was me in the NDIS process or going through the NDIS process, just have the conversation, you know, am I eligible, am I not? Because you might well be, you know. if not for your primary disability, there's some secondary factors that could go into consideration to make you eligible. So have the conversation.
I agree. The eligibility is actually relatively, broad. It's not just one thing. I think people do sometimes think that it's only for people in a wheelchair, when it can be really for a range of disabilities and ways it impacts your life. So this is probably just a moment for you. Is there anything that you want to discuss about SDA or new to housing in particular?
I think just do it. If you've got the availability of those resources, don't be scared. Like, it's what it's here for. Move out of home, live your life. Like, don't be stuck in your comfort zone. Like, go out and recreate yourself, because that's what SDA housing is about. Closing the gap between abled and disabled communities.
Thanks, Brodie, for the good one. Thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you.